A 12-year-old black boy dances alone on the edge of a billionaire's estate. His shoes are red, worn, held together with tape. He does not know he is being watched. 60 yards away, behind a window in a private rehabilitation wing, a paralyzed girl sits frozen in a wheelchair. She has not spoken in months. She has not moved her hand in over a year. But right now, her eyes are following every step this stranger takes. Then the security guards arrive. They do not ask questions. They slam the boy face down into the grass and lock handcuffs around his wrists. The billionaire walks over, phone already dialing the police. He looks at the boy and says 5 words. "People like you always steal." He does not know that in 48 hours he will be on his knees, begging this boy to save his daughter.
Yeah, nobody there realized what that moment would lead to. So, let's start today's story.
The Whitmore estate sits behind 12-foot iron gates at the end of a private road lined with oak trees older than the nation's constitution. 40 acres of manicured silence. A 22,000-square-foot main house built from imported limestone. Security cameras on every wall, every fence post, every corner where shadow meets light. This is not a home. It is a kingdom. And Garrett Whitmore built it with his own hands. Garrett is 58 years old, founder and CEO of Whitmore Dynamic Systems, a defense technology firm that holds contracts with 3 branches of the United States military. His face has appeared on the covers of Forbes, Bloomberg, and Wired. In his study, framed photographs show him shaking hands with senators, generals, and 2 former presidents. He is a man who has spent 30 years bending the world to fit his vision. But tonight, his hands are shaking. On his desk sits a medical report, the 11th in 18 months. The conclusion is the same as the 10 before it. No significant progress. His daughter Lily, 10 years old, remains paralyzed from the waist down following a car accident caused by a drunk driver. The driver walked free on a legal technicality. Garrett sued. Garrett lost. And his daughter stopped walking, stopped talking, stopped smiling, stopped everything. He has spent $14 million. Neurologists from Berlin, physiotherapists from London, experimental stem cell researchers from Sao Paulo. Every specialist delivered the same confused verdict. Lily's spine shows signs of partial recovery, yet her body refuses to respond. The paralysis is no longer purely physical. Her mind has retreated so deep into grief that her body followed it into silence. In the rehabilitation wing, a private facility Garrett built inside the estate, Lily sits in her wheelchair beside the window. Her physical therapist, Elena Voss, adjusts the monitors and speaks to her gently.
Lily does not respond. Her eyes are fixed on the garden outside, watching nothing, seeing nothing. Elena writes in her notes, "Patient unresponsive to verbal and tactile stimuli, day 547. Donna Whitmore, Garrett's wife, stands in the doorway holding a children's book she has read to Lily every night for a year. She places her hand on her daughter's cheek and whispers, "Come back to us, sweetheart." Lily's eyes do not flicker. Donna closes the book and walks away before her daughter can see her cry. Then there is Clive Dutton, Garrett's head of security. Ex-military, 6'3", built from concrete and contempt. Since the accident, Clive has transformed the estate into a military compound. He screens every visitor, logs every vehicle, monitors every inch of the perimeter. His loyalty to Garrett is absolute. But loyalty is not the same as decency. He leans over the security desk, watching footage of the south wall, and mutters to a junior guard, "Those Bridgeport kids have been creeping closer. One of them gets in here. It's on your head." Bridgeport. 15 miles south, the world changes completely. Cracked sidewalks, bus stops with shattered glass panels, a bodega with steel bars across its windows. One of the poorest cities in the state, and the place Braxton Fuller calls home. He is 12 years old, thin, quiet, and right now he is dancing on a flattened piece of cardboard outside a laundromat. His body moves with a fluidity that does not belong to a child. Hip-hop isolations blending into contemporary flow, sharp freezes melting into spins that seem to bend gravity. A few neighbors watch from plastic chairs. A little girl tosses a quarter at his feet. He does not notice. When Braxton dances, the world disappears. On his feet are a pair of red dance shoes, scuffed and fading, the left toe patched twice with electrical tape. His mother, Nadine Fuller, gave them to him 2 weeks before she died of cancer. She was 31, a backup dancer who once earned a spot at a prestigious New York company, only to turn it down when she discovered she was pregnant with Braxton. She worked 2 jobs, danced in her living room, and taught her son rhythm before she taught him the alphabet. The shoes were 2 sizes too big when she placed them in his hands. "You'll grow into them," she said, "and promise me, never stop moving. The world will try to make you stand still. Don't let it." Now the shoes fit. Nadine has been gone 3 years. Upstairs, in a 2-bedroom apartment above the laundromat, Ruth Fuller, Braxton's grandmother, a retired nurse, watches her grandson through the window. She sees Nadine in every movement he makes. She whispers to herself, "He's got his mother's fire. I just pray the world doesn't put it out." $14 million against a pair of taped-together shoes. 2 worlds, 15 miles apart, about to collide. Braxton did not plan to be here. After school, on a Tuesday afternoon, he boarded the number 9 bus heading north with 75 cents and a vague idea. Someone at school had mentioned a park near Greenwich with a stone gazebo, good acoustics, open space, a place where sound bounced off the walls in a way that made even clapping feel like music. Braxton wanted to try a new routine there, something he had been building in his head for weeks, a piece about his mother, about the way she used to hum while folding laundry, the way her feet never stopped moving even when she was too tired to stand. He got off at the wrong stop. The street was quiet. Too quiet. No bodegas, no chain-link fences, no bass thumping from parked cars. Just stone walls draped in ivy, ancient oak trees, and the smell of freshly cut grass so clean it almost hurt. Braxton walked along the wall, trailing his fingers across the cool stone until he found a gap, not a gate, just a place where the ivy had pulled away and the wall dipped low enough for a 12-year-old to see over. Beyond it, a garden that looked like something from a movie. Roses in perfect rows, a fountain shaped like a lion, grass so green it seemed painted. Braxton did not climb over the wall. He walked further along the perimeter until he found an open stretch of lawn near the garden's edge, technically outside the main gate, but within the property's boundary. He did not know that. He did not see the cameras. He set down his backpack. He pulled out his red shoes
and laced them on. He pressed play on a small Bluetooth speaker. A second-hand gift from Ruth, and his mother's favorite song filled the air.
A slow, aching melody that Nadine used to play every Sunday morning. And Braxton began to dance. The grass was soft beneath his feet, the air was warm, and for the first time in weeks, something inside him unclenched. His arms rose like water finding its level. His feet tapped, then swept, then spun. He danced the hum of his mother's voice. He danced the creak of the laundromat stairs. He danced the feeling of being 12 and alone, and carrying something inside him that he could not name but could not put down. His eyes closed. The world fell away. He did not see the security camera pivot toward him. He did not see Clive Dutton lean forward at the monitor, jaw tightening, reaching for his radio. And he did not see the two guards approaching from behind, silent, fast, deliberate. The first hand grabbed his shoulder and ripped him backward. The second shoved him face down into the grass. His speaker skidded across the lawn, his mother's song still playing. His chin hit dirt. His arms were wrenched behind his back so hard his shoulder made a sound. Not a crack, but a wet pop that sent fire down his left side. Before he could scream, the cold bite of steel closed around both wrists. Handcuffs on a 12-year-old boy. His red shoes had come off in the struggle. They lay on their sides in the grass, laces tangled like two small, fallen birds. Clive Dutton arrived on a golf cart 30 seconds later. He stepped out slowly, adjusted his belt, and looked down at Braxton the way a man looks at something stuck to the bottom of his shoe. He did not ask if the boy was hurt. He did not ask his name. He crouched, grabbed Braxton's chin, turned his face left, then right, examining him like evidence, and said, "What did you steal? Empty your pockets. Now." The guards hauled Braxton to his knees. His pockets contained a bus transfer, a house key on a frayed string, and a photograph, small, creased, laminated with packing tape, of a woman in a red dress, mid-dance, laughing at the camera. Nadine Fuller. The only picture Braxton carried. Clive took the photograph, glanced at it, and tossed it onto the grass. "Nothing worth anything," he said, "just like I expected." Braxton stared at his mother's face lying in the dirt. His voice came out thin, barely a whisper. "I wasn't stealing anything. I was just dancing." Clive laughed, a short, hard sound with no humor in it. "Dancing, right. A kid from Bridgeport just happens to wander onto a property worth more than your whole bloodline. You were casing the place. I've seen 100 of you." 100 of you. Braxton heard those words and something inside him went very still. Not angry, not sad. Still, the way water goes still before it freezes. Then Garrett Whitmore arrived. He came from the main house, stride long and impatient, phone already in his hand. He looked at the scene, a black boy on his knees in handcuffs, guards on either side, Clive standing over him. And he did not pause. He did not ask what happened. He made his assessment in 3 seconds and reached his verdict in 2. "Call the police," he said to Clive. "Trespassing. Possible attempted burglary. I want him processed and removed." Braxton looked up at the billionaire. "Sir, please. I got off at the wrong bus stop. I didn't know this was—" "I don't care what your story is." Garrett's voice was flat, final. The voice of a man who signs contracts that end careers. "People like you always have a story." People like you. The words landed like a hand across the face. Not shouted, not spat. Delivered calmly, almost bored, which made them worse. Braxton was 12 years old, kneeling in handcuffs on a stranger's lawn, and he already understood exactly what those 3 words meant. They meant his skin. They meant his neighborhood. They meant that nothing he said from this point forward would be heard, because the verdict had been delivered before he opened his mouth. Donna Whitmore appeared on the terrace. She saw the boy, the handcuffs, the guards, and her voice cut across the lawn. "Garrett, he is a child!" Garrett did not turn around. "Stay inside, Donna." Braxton stopped talking. He looked down at his mother's photograph lying face down in the grass. A tear fell from his jaw and landed on the back of his own hand, the hand locked in steel behind his back. He did not make a sound. And 60 yards away, in the rehabilitation wing, something no one expected was happening. Elena Voss stared at her monitor and blinked, then blinked again. Lily's heart rate, flat and mechanical for months, had just spiked. Her pupils, tracked by the neural response system, were dilated and moving. Elena checked the window angle and realized Lily's gaze was fixed on the garden, fixed on the boy. Elena whispered to herself, "That's unusual." "Yo, hold up a second. What you just saw right there? Yeah, that happens all the time. A kid getting judged before he even says a word. Not for what he did, just for how he looks. And honestly, that's messed up. 'Cause the world will decide who you are before you even open your mouth." Now think about it like this. What if that kid was your kid? Yeah, stay with me for a second. 'Cause this next part, everything flips. Just as Clive grabbed Braxton by the collar and began dragging him toward the security office, a sound came through the estate intercom that stopped every person on that lawn. A voice, thin, cracked, barely louder than a breath. "The boy." "Bring the boy." Clive's hand froze. The 2 guards exchanged a look. Donna pressed both hands to her mouth, and Garrett turned toward the intercom speaker as if the voice had come from the dead. Because in a way, it had. Lily Whitmore had not spoken a full sentence in over a year. Doctors had tried, therapists had tried. Her mother had begged, read stories, played music, held her face in both hands and pleaded. Nothing. Lily existed behind glass, present but unreachable. And now, for the first time in 547 days, she had formed words. Elena Voss's voice followed through the intercom, breathless. "Mr. Whitmore, come up here. Right now. Lily is responding. Her vitals are... I have never seen this." Garrett did not move for a long moment. His phone was still in his hand, the police dispatcher still on the line. He stared at Braxton, the boy on his knees, wrists red from the handcuffs, dirt on his face. This child from Bridgeport, in taped-together shoes, had somehow done what $14 million could not. He did not understand. He did not need to. "Remove the cuffs," he said quietly. Clive stared. "Sir, this kid just... Remove the cuffs. Now." The handcuffs came off. Braxton rubbed his wrists, the skin already bruising, and looked up at Garrett with an expression that was not gratitude and not fear. It was the careful stillness of someone who has learned that the same hand that hurts you can change its mind without warning. They brought him upstairs, through a marble foyer, down a hallway lined with paintings worth more than his grandmother's apartment building, into the rehabilitation wing. Braxton walked between Garrett and Clive like a prisoner being escorted, still unsure if this was a rescue or a different kind of trap. Then he saw her. Lily sat in a motorized wheelchair in the center of a room filled with machines. She was small, pale, her legs covered by a white blanket. Monitors beeped around her, but her eyes were wide open,
and locked onto Braxton with an intensity that made him forget every other person in the room. "You were dancing," she said. Her voice was rough from disuse, like a hinge that had not turned in years. "Outside, by the wall. I saw you." "Yeah," Braxton said. "I was. Will you do it again?" The room held its breath. Garrett stood by the door, arms crossed, a man watching something he could not control. Donna had both hands pressed together as if in prayer. Elena kept her eyes on the monitors. Clive leaned against the wall, suspicion carved into every line of his face. And Braxton looked at this girl in her wheelchair and saw something no one else could see. He saw his mother in her final weeks, trapped in a body that had stopped listening, desperate for something to feel. His red shoes were still outside, lying in the grass.
He was standing in his socks on hardwood floor. He nodded. He began to move. No music, no speaker, no cardboard stage, just his body and the silence. His arms floated upward, palms open, fingers spreading like branches reaching for light. His feet whispered across the floor, soft taps, gentle turns, movements so quiet they barely made a sound. He did not perform. He spoke, with his shoulders, his wrists, his spine, in a language that had no words. In Lily's right hand, the hand that had not moved voluntarily in 18 months, lifted off the armrest. 2 inches, 3, 5. Her fingers stretched open, reaching toward the boy dancing just for her. Elena grabbed Garrett's arm. "Mr. Whitmore, look at her hand." Donna saw it and covered her face. Garrett stared at his daughter's hand, suspended in the air, trembling, alive, and felt something crack open inside his chest that no amount of money had ever reached. Braxton did not see any of this. His eyes were closed.
He was not dancing for a billionaire's daughter. He was dancing for his mother, keeping his promise. And he had no idea that he had just changed everything. The next morning, Garrett did what Garrett always does. He wrote a check. He sat across from Ruth Fuller in the estate's formal sitting room, a space designed to intimidate, with 18-foot ceilings and oil portraits of men who built empires, and slid a piece of paper across the mahogany table. $5,000 a week, he said. Braxton comes here every day after school, dances for Lily, and your family is taken care of. I'll arrange transportation. Ruth looked at the check. She did not touch it. Then she looked at Garrett. Not at his suit, not at his house, not at the wealth pressing down from every wall. She looked at him, directly, the way a woman looks at a man she has already measured and found short. My grandson is not for hire, Mr. Whitmore. Her voice was steady, unhurried, carrying the kind of authority that does not need volume. But if his gift can help your daughter, he'll do it, because that's who he is, not because of your money. Garrett blinked. In 30 years of business, no one had ever pushed a check back across his table. He opened his mouth to negotiate. It was reflex, muscle memory. But Donna stepped in, thanked Ruth warmly, and guided the conversation towards something resembling human decency. The arrangement was made on Ruth's terms. Braxton would come 3 times a week, Ruth would accompany him, and there would be no contracts, no cameras, and no obligations. Garrett agreed because he had no choice. For the first time in his life, he needed something that money could not purchase. The sessions began. On the first visit, Braxton danced in Lily's room with Elena monitoring every reading. He was nervous, self-conscious with adults watching, aware of Garrett's eyes tracking him from the doorway like a man evaluating an investment. His movements were smaller than usual, held back, careful. But even restrained, something passed between him and Lily that the machines could measure. Her eyes followed him without blinking. Her fingers twitched in rhythm with his steps. And when he finished, breathing hard, standing awkwardly in the middle of the room, Lily spoke. "What's his name?" 3 words, a full question. The first she had asked anyone in over a year. Donna heard it from the hallway and pressed her back against the wall, sliding down until she was sitting on the floor, crying silently into her hands. The second session, 3 days later, was different. Braxton brought his small Bluetooth speaker and played his mother's favorite song, the same Sunday morning melody that had been playing when the guards tackled him. This time, there were no guards, just the music, the room, and Lily watching from her wheelchair. Braxton let go. His movements grew wider, deeper, pulling from somewhere below technique, from the place where grief lives when it has nowhere else to go. His arms swept through the air like he was clearing smoke from a burning room. His feet struck the floor and then floated, struck and floated, building a rhythm that felt less like choreography and more like a heartbeat made visible. Lily's right arm lifted fully off the wheelchair, not a twitch, not a spasm, a slow, deliberate reach, her fingers stretching toward Braxton as if trying to touch the music itself. Elena nearly dropped her tablet. She checked the readings 3 times before she believed them. Neural activity in Lily's lower motor cortex had increased 340% during Braxton's dancing. She whispered into her recorder, "Mirror neuron activation paired with deep emotional resonance. No clinical protocol replicates this."
The third session broke everyone in the room. Braxton danced a piece he had choreographed for his mother's memorial, a routine he had never performed for anyone. It began in stillness, his body curled inward, arms wrapped around himself, and then slowly unfolded like something learning to breathe again. Halfway through, Lily's right foot moved. Not a reflex, a deliberate rhythmic tap. She was keeping time with him. Elena shot to her feet. Donna gasped. Garrett, standing in the doorway with his arms crossed, felt his jaw loosen and his hands drop to his sides. His daughter's foot was moving. His daughter's foot was moving. Braxton did not know. His eyes were closed. They were always closed. But not everyone in the estate shared this wonder. Clive Dutton watched the sessions from the security feed in his office and saw something entirely different. He saw a con artist, a street kid from Bridgeport who had stumbled into the greatest payday of his life. He cornered Garrett after the third session and spoke in the low, certain voice of a man who believes suspicion is the same thing as wisdom. "This kid's family is planning something. A lawsuit, a media play. They'll milk you for everything. I've seen this play before. Different kid, same hustle." Garrett hesitated. He did not dismiss Clive. Some part of him, the part that built an empire by trusting no one, still listened. Clive took that hesitation as permission. He launched his own quiet campaign against Braxton. On Monday, Braxton arrived at the estate to find the visitor gate locked and no one answering the intercom. He waited 40 minutes in the heat before a junior guard finally let him in. On Wednesday, his temporary access badge had been deactivated due to a system error. On Thursday, he spent the afternoon at the estate and was not offered food or water. The kitchen staff had been told by Clive that outside visitors were not permitted in service areas. Small cruelties, designed not to leave marks, but to send a message. You do not belong here. Braxton said nothing. He came, he danced, he left. But Ruth noticed.
Her grandson was coming home thinner, quieter, with a tightness around his eyes that she recognized. It was the same look Nadine had when the dance world told her she was not the right fit, not the right look, not the right color. Ruth called Donna directly. Donna investigated. She pulled the security logs, checked the access records, and found every one of Clive's fingerprints. She confronted him in the main hallway with Garrett present. "I'm protecting this family," Clive said, shoulders squared, chin raised. Donna's voice was ice. "You're protecting your prejudice. There's a difference." Garrett stood between them, silent, torn. He knew Donna was right, but firing Clive meant admitting that the man he had trusted for a decade shared the same blind spot that Garrett himself was only beginning to see in the mirror.
He told Clive to stand down. He did not fire him. And Braxton kept coming, kept dancing, kept giving pieces of himself to a girl who was slowly, painfully, beautifully learning to reach back. But he now walked the hallways of the Whitmore estate knowing the truth, that half this household saw him as a healer, and the other half saw him as a threat. And the man at the top had not yet decided which side he was on. 2 weeks of data, 14 sessions, over 40 hours of footage. Elena Voss had never compiled a case study with trembling hands, but she was trembling now. She stood in the estate's conference room before a screen showing a video call with two of the most respected minds in American medicine, Dr. James Caldwell from Harvard's Neurology Department and Dr. Susan Merritt from Johns Hopkins Rehabilitation Medicine. Garrett sat at the head of the table. Donna sat beside him. Elena began with the brain scans. Side by side, Lily's neural activity before Braxton and during. The difference was staggering. The before scans showed a motor cortex in near dormancy, gray and quiet. The during scans lit up like a city at night, firing across regions, silent for 18 months. Then she played the footage. Session 1, fingers twitching. Session 2, arm lifting, reaching. Session 3, foot tapping in rhythm. And a clip from Session 12, Lily's left hand, the weaker hand, the one that had shown zero response to every clinical stimulus for a year, slowly closing around the armrest and squeezing. Dr. Caldwell spoke first. "In 30 years, I have never seen a non-pharmacological stimulus produce this level of motor cortex reactivation in a trauma-induced paralysis patient." Dr. Merritt leaned closer to her camera. "The mechanism is kinesthetic empathy therapy. His movement triggers mirror neuron activation that bypasses Lily's cognitive trauma barriers. Her paralysis was never purely spinal. It was her brain's response to psychological devastation. This child's dancing is the first stimulus that has reached past the wall her mind built." She paused. "The emotional depth required to produce this effect is extraordinary. This is not just dancing. This boy communicates something Lily's brain recognizes as safe enough to respond to. That is exceptionally rare." Garrett stared at the screen. $14 million, 11 specialists, and a 12-year-old in taped shoes had surpassed them all, not with science, but with something no machine could map. That evening, the second revelation came. Donna sat with Ruth in the kitchen, not the formal dining room, but the kitchen, because Ruth trusted people more when they were near a stove. Over coffee, Ruth told the full story. Nadine Fuller was not just a woman who liked to dance.
At 22, she had auditioned for one of the most prestigious contemporary dance companies in New York.
and been accepted. The call she had waited her entire life for. 2 days later, she discovered she was pregnant. She turned it down without hesitation. She worked 2 jobs, waitress by morning, grocery clerk by night, and danced in her living room with Braxton on her hip. She taught him rhythm before he understood language. When cancer came, it moved fast. In her last weeks, Nadine could barely stand. But she sat on the edge of her bed, watched Braxton dance in the hallway, and told him, "Dancing is how you tell God the things you can't say out loud. Promise me you'll never stop." Ruth pulled out her phone and showed Donna a video. Nadine, in a red dress, dancing with 5-year-old Braxton in their tiny living room. The same fluidity, the same grace, the same ability to make movement feel like language.
Donna watched it 3 times and did not realize she was crying until her tears hit the screen. When Garrett saw the video that night, he stood alone in his study and watched it on repeat. This single mother who gave up her dream so her son could live. And he thought about what he had said to her child on his lawn. "People like you." He pressed his palms against his desk and lowered his head. The shame did not arrive like thunder. It arrived like a tide, slow, rising, impossible to outrun. This boy was not a street kid who got lucky. He was the inheritor of a legacy, a prodigy carrying a dead woman's promise in a pair of red shoes. And Garrett Whitmore had put him in handcuffs. Week 3. Lily had spoken more words in 14 days than in the previous 18 months combined. Her right arm moved freely. Her left hand could grip. Both feet responded to rhythm. Elena's reports read like dispatches from the impossible. And Garrett Whitmore, drunk on a hope he had not felt in over a year, made the worst decision of his life. He called a press conference. He invited 12 media outlets, 4 medical journalists, and 2 network cameras to the estate. The rehabilitation wing's main room was cleared, polished, and lit with professional lighting. A performance space was arranged in the center, hardwood floor buffed to a shine, Lily's wheelchair positioned at the front. Garrett rehearsed his talking points that morning. The narrative was already written. The devoted billionaire father who never gave up, who searched the world, who found the answer. His answer. His story. He did not tell Braxton. He did not ask Ruth. He did not consult Donna. When Braxton arrived, he walked through the front door and stopped. Cameras everywhere. Reporters adjusting microphones, a woman positioning a ring light, a man testing a boom mic near the ceiling, the quiet, sacred space where he danced for Lily, the room where 2 children had built something fragile and real, had been transformed into a television set. Garrett appeared beside him, hand on his shoulder. "Just do what you always do. Dance for Lily. Pretend the cameras aren't here." Braxton stared at the room. He looked at the cameras and saw the same world that had ignored his mother her entire life. The same world that tackled him on the grass. The same world that handcuffed a 12-year-old and tossed his dead mother's photograph in the dirt. Now, that world wanted to watch him perform. Not because they valued him, but because a billionaire decided the story was worth selling. No. The word was quiet but absolute. Garrett blinked as if the boy had spoken a foreign language. "What do you mean, no? Lily needs this." "Lily needs me. She doesn't need them." Braxton pointed at the cameras. "What I do with her is not a show. It's not yours to sell." Garrett leaned down, voice sharpening. "You're a kid from Bridgeport. I'm offering you the chance of a lifetime. Do you understand what this exposure could do for you?" Braxton held his gaze.
I didn't dance my way into your daughter's heart so you could sell tickets to it." Every reporter heard it. Every camera froze. Garrett straightened, his face cycling through confusion, anger, and something unfamiliar, the sting of being seen clearly by a child who owed him nothing. Braxton turned and walked toward the door. Lily, wheeled into the room by Elena, saw him leaving, the boy whose movement had reached through the wall her mind had built. She watched him walk away, and something inside her cracked open. She screamed. Not a word, a raw, guttural cry from the place her silence had lived for 18 months. Monitors spiked into red. Elena rushed to her. Donna ran from the hallway.
The press conference collapsed into chaos. Reporters scrambling, equipment crashing, producers shouting into phones. Outside, Clive Dutton stepped into Braxton's path at the gate. 3 weeks of watching a street kid receive treatment he believed was undeserved. 3 weeks of biting his tongue while Donna overruled him. Now the kid was walking out, and Clive delivered the verdict he had carried since day one. "You finally showed your true colors, kid. You were never here for the girl. It was always a hustle. That's all people like you know how to do. People like you." The same 3 words, different mouth, same poison. Clive grabbed Braxton's arm hard enough to leave marks. His red shoes tumbled from his backpack onto the driveway, landing on their sides, laces splayed, the same way they had fallen on the grass 3 weeks ago. Ruth was out of the car before the shoes touched ground. She put herself between Clive and her grandson and looked up at him with zero fear.
"Touch my grandchild again, and you will learn what it means to cross a fuller woman." Clive released his grip. Ruth wrapped Braxton in her arms, picked up his shoes, and walked him to the car without once looking back. They drove home in silence. Braxton held his mother's shoes against his chest, staring out the window. Ruth watched him in the rearview mirror and recognized the expression. The same look Nadine wore the day she turned down New York. Someone who gave a piece of their soul to the world and watched the world try to auction it. That night, Lily collapsed. Without Braxton, neural stimulation ceased. Motor function regressed within hours. She retreated behind the wall, deeper than before. Elena called Garrett at 11. That boy was not a treatment. He was a connection. You cannot manufacture that. You cannot buy it. And you cannot put it on television. Donna was waiting in their bedroom. The argument was quiet, which made it devastate more completely. She said what he had always known, but never faced. "You didn't do this for Lily. You did it for yourself. Because you needed to be the one who saved her. And when a 12-year-old from Bridgeport did what your billions couldn't, you couldn't bear it. You would rather let your pride destroy this miracle than admit a boy in taped shoes is the one person on earth who can reach your daughter." Garrett sat alone in his study at 2 a.m. He pulled up security footage from 3 weeks earlier and watched a boy in red shoes dance on his lawn with closed eyes. More grace in that small body than anything his fortune had ever built. Then he watched his guards tackle that boy, heard his own voice. "People like you." He rewound it and listened again and again. Each time, the words sounded uglier. Each time, the boy on the screen looked smaller. The fortress Garrett had spent 58 years building folded inward, silently, like a man lowering his head into his hands and letting his shoulders shake in the dark. The next morning, he drove to Bridgeport alone. No security, no driver. Found the laundromat, climbed the narrow stairs, and knocked on Ruth Fuller's door. She opened it and saw a billionaire in a wrinkled shirt
unshaved, eyes red and hollow. He did not say, "I'll increase the offer." He said, "I was wrong about your grandson. I was wrong about everything." Ruth studied him for a long moment. Then, "It's not me you need to say that to." Braxton appeared behind his grandmother, wearing his red shoes. He had heard every word through the thin apartment walls. Garrett lowered himself to one knee, a billionaire kneeling on cracked linoleum in a Bridgeport hallway, and looked the boy in the eye. "I didn't see you, Braxton. I looked at you and saw what I wanted to see, not who you are. That was the cruelest thing I've ever done. Can you forgive me?" Braxton was quiet for a long time. Then he asked one question. "Is Lily okay?" Not, "Will you pay me?" Not, "Will you apologize publicly?" Is Lily okay? Because his heart was never anywhere else. They returned to the estate. No cameras, no reporters. Just Lily's room, a chair for Ruth, and open floor. He laced his red shoes. He looked at Lily, slumped in her wheelchair, nearly catatonic, further away than she had been in weeks. He took one breath, closed his eyes, and he danced. It began with just his hands, moving like water over stone. Then his arms, sweeping wide enough to hold everything he had ever lost. His feet found the floor, soft taps building to precise strikes, then full spins that turned grief into geometry. He danced his mother's lullaby. He danced the sound of the laundromat at night. He danced the handcuffs and the wet grass. He danced the words that cut him. Then he danced forgiveness, slow, open, terrifying in its generosity. Lily's foot moved, her ankle, her knee lifted from the chair. Elena pressed both hands over her mouth. Dama gripped Garrett's arm until her knuckles turned white. The monitors erupted, motor cortex firing on every channel, every pathway that had been dark for 18 months blazing back to life. Braxton opened his eyes and extended his hand. Lily reached out. Their fingers touched. And Lily Whitmore, with Braxton Fuller's hand in hers, stood up from her wheelchair. 1 step, 2, 3. Walking, unsteady, trembling, but alive, toward the boy who had never stopped moving, just as his mother told him. Tears streamed down Braxton's face, down Lily's face, down every face in the room. Garrett Whitmore dropped to his knees for the second time that day. But this time, he was not apologizing. He was watching his daughter walk. In the silence that followed, no one moved. Lily stood between her wheelchair and Braxton, her hand still in his, her legs trembling beneath her. 6 steps. She had taken 6 steps before her knees buckled, and Braxton caught her, holding her the way you hold something that might shatter if you breathe too hard. Elena eased Lily back into her chair, but Lily did not let go of Braxton's hand. Then she smiled, small, uncertain, like a light flickering on in a house that has been dark for years, but real. Donna pressed her face into Garrett's shoulder. Ruth closed her eyes and whispered a name only she could hear. Elena called Dr. Caldwell and Dr. Merritt within the hour. The footage of Lily walking 6 unassisted steps was reviewed by both specialists before nightfall. The verdict was unanimous. Braxton's kinesthetic empathy therapy had achieved what $14 million in conventional treatment could not. That evening, Garrett called Clive Dutton to his study. Clive walked in expecting another assignment. He found Garrett standing behind his desk with an expression he had never seen. Not anger, but a terrible, quiet clarity. "You're done, Clive." "Sir, everything I did was to protect. You were supposed to protect my family. Instead, you threatened the one person who saved them. You locked a child out of my gate. You took food from a boy's mouth. You threw his dead mother's photograph in the dirt." Garrett paused. "Loyalty without decency is just cruelty with a badge. Leave now." Clive turned and walked out. 20 minutes later, he was escorted off the property, carrying his belongings in a cardboard box. The same material Braxton once danced on outside a laundromat in Bridgeport. That night, Garrett sat with Braxton on the terrace. The garden where Braxton had first been tackled stretched out before them in the moonlight. Two people who should have had nothing in common, sharing silence. "Where did you learn to dance like that?" Braxton looked down at his red shoes. "My mom. She said the body remembers what the mind forgets." Garrett nodded slowly. "Your mother was right." They sat there for a long time, saying nothing more, watching the garden where everything had begun. 3 months later, the world looked different. Garrett Whitmore stood at a podium in Bridgeport, not Greenwich, not Manhattan, Bridgeport, 1 block from the laundromat where Braxton grew up. Behind him, a red ribbon stretched across the entrance of a renovated community center. The sign above the door read, "The Nadine Fuller Foundation for Dance Therapy." Not the Whitmore Foundation. Nadine Fuller. The woman who turned down New York, danced in her living room, and planted a gift in her son so deep that not even death could pull it out. Garrett insisted on the name. It was the least he could do. He knew it would never be enough. The foundation would fund research into kinesthetic empathy therapy, provide dance scholarships for underserved youth, and build a bridge between medicine and the art that had done what medicine could not. Its first class of 12 students, kids from Bridgeport, New Haven, and Hartford, would train in a studio with sprung hardwood floors, mirrors on every wall, and a sound system that made music feel like it lived inside your bones. The kind of room Nadine Fuller never had. Ruth stood in the audience, holding an envelope she had received that morning. An acceptance letter from the most prestigious performing arts academy in the Northeast. Full scholarship, all expenses, addressed to Braxton Fuller. She had read it 4 times. Each time, she held it to her chest and whispered to the ceiling, "He did it, Nadine. Your boy did it." Braxton's story went viral, but not from Garrett's press conference. That footage was never aired. It was Elena Voss's published medical case study that caught fire. Co-authored with Dr. Caldwell and Dr. Merritt, it documented every session, every brain scan, every response. The video of Lily walking during Braxton's final dance was viewed 80 million times within a week, the most repeated comment in dozens of languages. This boy healed her with his soul. Twice a week, Braxton returned to the estate, not as a visitor, but as Lily's friend. She no longer sat frozen. She stood, she walked, and slowly, beautifully, she began to dance. One afternoon in early autumn, they danced together in the garden where Braxton had first been tackled and handcuffed. Lily wore white ballet shoes. Braxton wore his red ones. The grass was the same. Everything else had changed. Her movements were small and cautious, her balance still fragile, but she was moving under her own power, and she was laughing. She stopped mid-step and looked at him. "You woke me up," she said.
Braxton shook his head. "Nah, you were always awake. You just needed someone to hear you." In a television studio, Garrett sat across from an interviewer and did not deflect. He looked directly into the camera. "I handcuffed a 12-year-old boy on my lawn because of the color of his skin. That boy saved my daughter's life with nothing but a pair of old shoes and a promise to his dying mother. I don't deserve his forgiveness, but I'm spending the rest of my life trying to earn it." And Clive Dutton? Private security at a strip mall outside Hartford. $12 an hour, a polyester uniform. One evening, on his break, he walked past a food court television showing Braxton and Lily dancing together in the garden. 80 million views. The boy he had called a hustler, a thief, a nothing. Clive watched for 10 seconds, then turned and walked away. No change, no revelation, no redemption. Some people see the light and choose to close their eyes. So let me ask you something.
How many Braxton Fullers are out there right now? How many kids are dancing on sidewalks, singing in stairwells, painting on cardboard boxes, carrying gifts the world refuses to see because it has already decided who they are? How many miracles are we walking past every single day? This story is not about a billionaire. It is about a boy in red shoes who kept a promise to his dying mother and gave a stranger's daughter her legs back. It is about what happens when we stop looking at the outside and start seeing what is inside. Braxton Fuller did not have money, connections, or a single person in power who believed in him. He had rhythm. He had heart. He had shoes held together with tape and a love so deep it could wake the dead. The lesson is simple. The people we dismiss may carry exactly the gift we need most. The child we handcuff may be the one who heals us. The talent we overlook because it comes in the wrong skin, from the wrong neighborhood, in the wrong shoes, that talent does not disappear. It waits. And when someone finally has the courage to see it, it changes everything. All right, now hold up a second. This right here, I swear you see this all the time. A black kid with real talent, like actually gifted, and people still act like he's not even there, just because of how he looks. And I'm gonna be real, that part always pisses me off a little. 'Cause talent doesn't care about people's bias. It's still gonna show up. And the crazy part? Half the time, the same kid everyone ignored at the start ends up being the one who saves the whole situation later. Yeah, funny how that works. Now here is what I need from you. If this story moved you, if you felt that anger when they put a child in handcuffs, that hope when Lily's hand first moved, that moment when she stood up from her wheelchair and walked, share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Drop a comment and tell me, who in your life has a hidden gift the world hasn't seen yet? Subscribe and hit that bell. Every week, we tell stories about the people the world underestimates and the moments that prove the world wrong. Until next time, never stop moving. Hashtag never stop moving. Hashtag justice for Braxton. Hashtag hidden talent. Hashtag dance heals.